Welcome to the Vertical Sky Journal, the podcast that brings you everything you could ever want to know about Kilimanjaro. The climbing and the fitness, altitude and nutrition, the environment, the wildlife, and the people at the heart of the mountain. Today, the quiet ascent from the north, the only route that climbs the mountain from the Kenyan side, and the one we trust most when the rains come, the Rongai route.
And, when you picture climbing Kilimanjaro, you probably imagine a bustling trailhead.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you envision joining this long, colorful line of climbers, all setting off together into the dense rainforest of the southern or western slopes.
Right, and that is the reality for the vast majority of people who visit the mountain.
Yeah.
The popular trails are undeniably beautiful, but, well, they are undeniably busy.
Which is why today we invite you to look in a completely different direction. We invite you to turn your attention to the remote north.
Yes, the northern approach offers a completely distinct experience. Rongai stands alone as the sole trail approaching the mountain from the Kenyan side.
So when you choose this path, you're making a conscious decision to step away from the established crowds.
Exactly. You choose a solitary path, completely divorced from that familiar rhythm of the southern gates.
But let me challenge that premise immediately.
Go ahead.
If I'm spending a considerable amount of money, right, and dedicating months of training to climb this iconic mountain, why would I deliberately choose a route where I miss out on the famous lush rainforests of the south?
That is a very valid point of skepticism.
I mean, is the word solitude merely a polite way of saying the Northern Trail is barren and uneventful?
Well, no, not at all. But it is precisely why we have to be honest about the trade-offs of the Rongai route.
Right.
So to understand those trade-offs, you really have to understand the geography of the mountain, because the geography dictates both the weather you experience and the landscape you walk through.
So the lack of a dense rainforest there isn't just, a design flaw of the route.
No, actually, it is a fascinating meteorological consequence of a phenomenon known as a rain shadow.
Let's examine that rain shadow effect, actually. The physics behind it are genuinely fascinating.
They are, yes.
Because the prevailing winds carry vast amounts of moisture directly from the Indian Ocean, right?
Right.
And as these massive moisture-laden weather systems sweep across the African plains, they eventually collide with the immense physical barrier of Kilimanjaro.
Standing at 5,895 meters, it is a massive wall.
Exactly.
So when that warm, wet air hits the mountain, it essentially has nowhere to go but up. This process is called orographic lift.
Okay.
As the air is forced upwards along the southern and western slopes, it expands and it cools rapidly.
And cold air cannot hold as much moisture as warm air.
Precisely. Therefore, the water vapor condenses, creating heavy clouds, and it drops the vast majority of its rain right there on those southern and western faces.
And this constant deluge is what creates and sustains those spectacular dense rainforests on routes such as Mashami and Lemosho.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But by the time those weather systems finally crest the summit and roll down the northern side toward the Kenyan border, they've been almost entirely stripped of their moisture.
So they arrive dry.
Yes. Consequently, the northern side of Kilimanjaro sits in a permanent rain shadow. The climate is significantly drier and, well, the vegetation is entirely different as a result.
Which provides a tremendous tactical advantage for climbers, really.
It absolutely does. Because the north receives just a fraction of the rainfall, Rongai becomes our most dependable and trusted option when the western and southern routes are at their wettest during the rainy season.
Right. When the popular trails turn into exhausting rivers of deep mud, the Rongai route often remains perfectly walkable.
Exactly that.
And that dependability is crucial. I mean, we can think of choosing Rongai through an analogy. It's sort of akin to taking the quiet country back roads instead of the busy scenic highway.
I like that. You deliberately trade immediate, dramatic visual impact for, well, profound peace and reliability.
But the compromises are specific, and we must lay them out clearly for anyone considering this. First, the journey to the trailhead itself requires genuine commitment.
Indeed, the logistical footprint is larger. The drive to the northern gate, also known as Lemuru Gate, is considerably longer.
You have to travel far around the base of the mountain.
Right, to reach the starting point near the Kenyan border. And secondly, the visual experience of the lower slopes is much more subdued.
You don't encounter that thick, highly varied, dripping rainforest that defines the opening days of the other routes.
No, the vegetation is sparser. It features resilient shrubs and pine plantations in those initial stages.
Yet, for the right climber, this represents a wonderful bargain. I mean, you trade that lush lower scenery for absolute solitude.
Yes.
You trade a crowded trail for pure wilderness. To walk for hours on a world-famous mountain and see absolutely no one outside your own small expedition team, it's a rare privilege.
It really is. Perhaps the best way to understand this northern approach is through a framework of incremental deprivation.
Oh, how so?
Well, you are slowly stripping away the noise of the modern world, then you strip away the vegetation, and finally you remove all distractions until it is just you and the mountain.
That is a brilliant framework. The landscape reflects that exact journey of simplification.
It does.
So let's place our boots on the ground at the Rongai Gate and examine how that journey actually begins. Day one is defined by a deeply peaceful, unhurried beginning.
You start your walk passing through local farmland, observing the agricultural life of the northern slopes.
And this cultivated land smooths naturally into quiet pine forests. There is no steep, immediate struggle demanding your breath here.
No, not at all. It is a gentle start that sets a calm, measured tone for the entire expedition. You just ease your way onto the mountain.
Listening to the wind in the pines and perhaps spotting the black and white colobus monkeys high in the canopy.
Is lovely. And then as you wake on the morning of day two, leaving Simba Camp behind, the environment shifts dramatically.
Yeah.
You emerge from the quiet pine forest and step out into the open moorland, heading towards Kikalewa Caves. And this is where the visual magic of the Rongai route truly begins to reveal itself.
Primarily because of the unique perspective you gain, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The psychology of that perspective is extraordinary. I mean, on the busier, steeper southern routes, you might find yourself staring primarily at the boots and rucksacks of the climbers directly in front of you.
Focusing entirely on the physical exertion.
Exactly. But on the Rongai route, the trail opens up before you. Your gaze is constantly drawn upward.
You have the massive Great Dome of Kibo and the jagged, imposing spires of Mawenzi looming ahead of you almost the entire way.
And having those two distinct peaks in your line of sight acts as a constant visual anchor. It draws you higher naturally.
It really does. You see, Kilimanjaro is a stratovolcano composed of three distinct volcanic cones: Shira, Kibo, and Mawenzi. And on the Rongai approach, you are walking directly toward this spectacular interplay between Kibo, which is the central summit cone, and Mawenzi, the older, heavily eroded, jagged peak to the east.
So you spend day two walking steadily through the heath and heather towards those peaks. And then on day three, the rhythm of the trail deliberately changes.
It does. Leaving the area of Kikalewa Caves, you face a shriek but dramatic, steep climb.
You push upward out of the moorland to reach the Mawenzi Tarn.
And arriving at the Mawenzi Tarn is consistently described by climbers as a profound moment.
I can imagine. Just for clarity, a tarn is a small mountain lake typically formed in a cirque excavated by a glacier, right?
Exactly. And this particular body of water is nestled right beneath the towering vertical cliffs of Mawenzi.
It feels incredibly wild. You are camped in the shadow of this magnificent jagged peak, far removed from the rest of the world.
The stark rock faces of Mawenzi catching the afternoon light provide one of the most stunning campsites on the entire mountain, without a doubt.
However, arriving here introduces a fascinating contradiction in how we plan the ascent.
Yes, and that contradiction centers entirely around the pace of the expedition.
Precisely, because we frequently celebrate Rongai for its kind and steady gradient. It is widely considered one of the most forgiving trails on the mountain.
Lacking the punishing vertical walls found elsewhere.
Right. So why then do we strongly recommend the 7-day itinerary over the shorter 6-day option? I mean, if the physical trail is gentler, why take longer to climb it?
Well, the answer lies entirely in human physiology, actually, and how the body adapts to altitude.
Okay.
You see, the Rongai road has a very consistent, steady, upward gradient. Now, while this is wonderful for your leg muscles and makes the mechanical act of walking quite pleasant, it lacks the natural undulations found on other trails.
It has fewer topographical features that force you to climb high and sleep low.
Exactly. And the concept of climbing high and sleeping low is the golden rule of mountaineering.
Right. On routes with varied, chaotic topography, the trail itself acts as a natural acclimatization mechanism. You might climb over a high ridge during the day, exposing your body to thinner air.
And then drop down hundreds of meters into a valley to sleep, giving your body a chance to recover.
But because Rongai is essentially a steady upward ramp, We must artificially build that vital acclimatization into your itinerary.
Yes. When you ascend, the barometric pressure drops, meaning each breath contains fewer oxygen molecules. Your body needs time to register this hypoxia.
And respond by producing more red blood cells to carry the limited oxygen more efficiently.
Exactly. So without natural valleys to drop into, pushing straight up a continuous ramp is just a recipe for altitude sickness.
We solve this by adding a dedicated acclimatization day at Mawenzi Tarn. So day 4 is spent resting at the spectacular camp beneath the cliff.
Resting but staying active. You do not simply sit in your tent all day.
Right, you complete a short, strategic climb further up the slopes of Mawenzi.
This brief excursion exposes your system to a higher elevation, stimulating that crucial red blood cell production. And then you return to the lower elevation of the Tarn to sleep and recover.
So taking this extra day is not merely a luxury. It meaningfully lifts your chances of standing on the summit in good health.
It absolutely does.
And then having rested and acclimatized, day 5 presents one of the most striking, unforgettable landscapes of the entire expedition.
Yes, you leave the protective shadow of Mawenzi Tarn and step out onto the saddle.
Making your way toward Kibo Hut, which will serve as your base camp for the summit attempt.
And the saddle is a vast, high-altitude desert. It is a stark lunar expanse stretching endlessly between the two distinct peaks of Mawenzi behind you and Kibo ahead of you.
Walking across the saddle really highlights the strange, beautiful emptiness of the north, doesn't it?
It does. It is an environment completely devoid of vegetation.
You really feel the sheer scale of the mountain here, walking across a sea of loose volcanic rock under a massive open sky.
And the wind whips across this flat expanse without any trees to break its force. You truly feel as though you have left Earth and are trekking across the surface of another planet.
It is a profound, quiet space that perfectly prepares you mentally for the ultimate test.
Because the quiet approach of the north ultimately converges with the universal challenge of Kilimanjaro. Regardless of how gentle your approach has been, regardless of the solitude you have enjoyed, you must face summit night.
Right. Day 6 begins deep in the freezing darkness at Kibo Hut. The altitude here is roughly 4,700 meters.
You're woken just before midnight.
You force down some warm tea and biscuits, layer on every single piece of thermal clothing you possess, and step out into the freezing wind.
The midnight start is a tactical necessity, primarily because the final ascent involves climbing steep scree slopes.
Scree being that loose, shifting volcanic gravel.
Yes. During the day, it is incredibly frustrating to climb as you slide backward with every step. But in the dead of night, the moisture in the ground freezes solid. It essentially cements the scree together and provides a much firmer, more reliable surface for your boots.
You climb slowly and steadily upward through the night, guided only by the narrow beam of your head torch. The air is bitterly cold, dropping well below freezing, and the oxygen is incredibly thin.
The physical demand is immense, yes, but the psychological battle is equally challenging. You are locked in a tiny bubble of light, just placing one foot in front of the other for hours.
The pacing during this dark ascent must be crucial.
Oh, it is. Your guides will maintain an incredibly slow, deliberate rhythm. The objective is to reach the crater rim at a location called Gilman's Point, just as the sun begins to rise.
And watching the dawn break from that elevation is an indescribable experience. Feeling the first genuine warmth of the sun after hours of freezing darkness provides a massive psychological surge.
The horizon turns vibrant orange and purple, illuminating the curvature of the earth below you. It's extraordinary.
And from Gilman's Point, you are no longer climbing steep scree.
No, you are walking along the rim of the dormant volcanic crater. You make the final, breathtaking push past ancient, towering glaciers.
To reach the true roof of Africa, Uhuru Peak, standing at 5,895 meters above sea level.
Standing by the famous wooden sign at Uhuru Peak is a moment of pure triumph.
You have traversed the solitary north and conquered the highest point on the continent. However, reaching the summit means the journey is only half complete.
Right.
And what follows next highlights one of the greatest logistical perks of the Rongai route.
Yes, because once you begin your descent, you do not turn around and retrace your steps across the northern wilderness.
Instead, you descend down the completely different southern side of the mountain. You leave the summit, sliding rapidly down the thawing scree, and make a long, continuous descent down to Hurambo Hut.
Returning to our earlier analogy of the quiet country backroads, descending the Marangu route is entirely different. It feels quite similar to emerging back onto a busy interstate after days of quiet driving.
The contrast is striking and immediate, isn't it?
Very much so. On your ascent through the north, you experience total wilderness, sleeping in portable tents at quiet, remote campsites.
But on your descent through the south, you pass the established, permanent A-frame huts of the Marangu route. You witness the bustling, historic side of the mountain's infrastructure.
You spend your final night at Harambo Hut, surrounded by other teams heading up or coming down. Then, on day 7, you continue descending entirely through the rich, dense forest via the Marangu Gate.
So this routing means that climbers experience two completely different faces of Kilimanjaro in a single trip.
Exactly. You observe the dry, resilient vegetation of the north on the way up and the incredibly lush, dripping canopy of the rainforest on the way down.
It provides a perfectly complete picture of Kilimanjaro's diverse ecosystems.
And then you finally emerge at the Marangu Gate, where your climbing certificate and a well-earned celebration with your expedition team await you.
When we synthesize all these elements, a clear picture emerges of who the Rongai route is truly for. It is the perfect match for first-time climbers who are seeking a forgiving, steady gradient rather than punishing steep ascents.
Yes, and it is the absolute best choice for climbers who need a dependable option during the wet season, relying on that vital northern rain shadow to keep the trails dry and walkable.
But most importantly, it is for the purists. It is for those who value peace, pristine wilderness, and profound solitude over the busier, more crowded paths.
If you want lush, highly varied scenery from the very first hour, and you do not mind sharing the trail with hundreds of others, routes like Lemosho or Mahema will provide that experience beautifully.
But for a kind descent and a route you can trust when the rains come, Rongai remains unmatched.
We began by contrasting the busy southern gates with the silence of the Kenyan border. The mountain offers many paths to the roof of Africa, but only one grants you this specific, beautiful emptiness.
Before we leave you today, I want you to consider a broader idea. We live in an increasingly hyper-connected, densely populated world. We are constantly surrounded by noise, crowds, and endless digital notifications. When you eventually choose your path up Kilimanjaro, ask yourself what you are truly seeking from the adventure. Perhaps, in our modern era, the greatest luxury of travel is not found in the most dramatically photographed scenery. Perhaps the ultimate luxury is the total, profound absence of other people.
That is a brilliant thought to end on.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, do subscribe so you never miss the latest from the Vertical Sky Journal. You will find a full written version of this episode over on our journal at vertical-sky.com. And we would love you to come and say hello on Instagram, where we are at VERTICALSKYTZW. Until next time, pole, and keep dreaming of the mountain.